Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Maqbool, with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is reference to the political situation of the country and, of course, with regards to the negotiations that were continuing previously with the PTI and the government. And this is something, of course, that has been the forefront for quite some time in terms of moving forward, in terms of political dialogue, and then, of course, engaging the opposition. Something, of course, that the government has openly offered in the parliament. We saw that a committee was also formed by the PTI in this regard, and we had a couple of meetings chaired by the National Assembly Speaker as well. But at the same time, what is the outcome of these meetings still remains to be seen, while a lot of focus is centered around the meetings between their jailed founder and, of course, with reference to the ways in which and the manners in which these meetings have been allowed to carry on. Something that has been put forward as demands from the BTI, that they want unfettered access to their founder in the jail and to have uninterrupted meetings. While these demands have not been put forward excuse me, in any written format, it is, of course, something that remains to be seen whether or not it will be seriously taken by the government with regards to the way that it moves forward, with the third meeting not being called. So we're going to be taking a look at what this means, particularly in terms of how these dialogue sessions will proceed further and whether or not we can actually go ahead in terms of these discussions with the other demands as well, including the release of prisoners and the judicial inquiries into the cases of November 26th and May 9th. And well, of course, these are important factors. Political stability is still something that we're hoping for in terms of the outcome. And then, of course, we've just talked about yesterday the kind of economic recovery plan that Pakistan has launched, of course, needs to be taken seriously in this context as well. So we'll take a look into what really the different forces in the parliament are actually deciding and working upon. Our next segment is going to take a look at the situation in Pakistan, particularly in Kurram district, where we saw that there has been a lot of violence and clashes between warring tribes, something that was brokered into a ceasefire around New Year's time, and of course that has resulted into some peace. However, we have seen that the security personnel in the area have again been attacked, and this is, of course, something that has happened post the ceasefire. While, of course, that raises questions in terms of the kind of security that can be put forward in the district, we've seen that the ceasefire has actually been upheld, and so we're going to be taking a look at what that means in terms of actualities on ground and what can be done. We've also seen measures taken in terms of inquiries and investigations, and also the fact that anybody who's carrying a weapon will be considered a militant. What is going to be the future of these particular policies and steps is, of course, something that we will be talking about as the show goes on. Excuse me. For this and more, of course, in the studios, we've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Faisal, and we've also been joined online by M.Usman, Teacher PML-N, and Dr. Murtaza Political Analyst. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ma'am, for joining us and being a part of the discussion today. And this, of course, is something which is very, very important in terms of how we want to proceed further. And Faisal, I'll begin with you in terms of what we have seen so far in the kind of dialogue that has taken place. Do you think that any serious discussion has taken place in terms of what both sides really want and whether or not we can actually see progress? Because it all centers around the founder in the jail and the kind of meetings that they can have, or what sort of charter of demands they can put forward to. And so it seems that we're back to square one. Is that so?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, this is what it is. And when it comes to, of course, PTI as a party, we have time and again said that PTI as a political party, of course, it revolves around one man. The man is sitting in the jail, Imran Khan, and that is what the PTI is all about. Even somebody outside, be it chief minister of a province or other people who have been, of course, elected as chairman of their own party, and the former chairman still is considered as the ultimate chairman of the party at large. And if we look at every political move, it revolves around one man, and that is the former chairman himself. And so in this case, of course, the party, when everyone knows that it circles around one man, then of course whatever the problems are being faced by that one man, they need to be addressed, and that is what the actual demands are of PTI, of course related to the cases that have been put against him. And if we talk about the kind of cases they are, of course a few of them cases they are related to how the party itself was of course behaving in terms of a political party That too, of course, 9th May is one of the incidents. There are many other in which, of course, the pressure tactics that have been applied and employed by that political party, PTI, against the government, I mean, they are under the question as well. At the same time, of course, when we talk about February 2024's election, they have reservations on them elections as well, and of course they want all of these things to be addressed. But when, of course, it comes towards the political parties that are sitting in the government benches, the treasury benches, they believe that political turmoil which creates a chaos in the country in terms of course, Pakistan's economy suffers, Pakistan's political fabric suffers. So they want all of this to end. And when we, of course, talk about the PTI as a political party and its allied parties, of course, when they seek demands from the treasury benches, I don't see, any output coming out of it. The only thing I can see and I can believe in, that if there were genuine sort of demands, them demands that can be accepted and acceptable, looking at the circumstances, the current political circumstances, I think they will be, of course, acceptable to the government. But if somebody seeks sort of demands, the demands that are not in accordance to the constitution, in accordance to the justice system of Pakistan, then of course, this is something they are just seeking out of the books, seeking out of the, out of the domains of the government itself, because whatever the cases are, they need to be dealt with in accordance to the law.
Right.
So to me, I think this is what the whole scenario is.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Niaz, I want your opinion on the matter as well. We've, of course, seen such round of talks in the past as well, and now that we've seen a couple of these talks take place again, there was some sort of discussion with what this is going to achieve. And we've seen that there have been certain demands that have been put forward with regards to prisoners or judicial inquiries. But at the same time, what now is being discussed is the meetings with the founder in the jail, and then, of course, also in terms of what sort of modalities those meetings will actually take place. Do you think that we'll lose meaning or essence from the talks in itself, or this is an important matter of discussion for the opposition parties in order to move forward?
Well, thank you very much. It's still early days. We've had 2 rounds of talks, and if you look at any very complicated political dialogues, you'll notice that in the initial period, it's not about talks, it's just about talks about talks. How are the talks going to proceed? What are going to be the terms of, reference? What will be the terms of engagement, the protocols, etc. So I think right now it's those kind of issues that are being sorted out. Of course, the PTI was, requested by the government to submit written demands by January 2nd, and obviously it hasn't done that. But then, it's not something to, worry too much about if, there are some initial delays. The PTI has raised a valid point that, it needs unfettered and unmonitored access to its leader. And, that's, a requirement even for the government. What you have within the committees are, second-tier leaders who, after every round of talks, probably go back to their top leaders, inform them about what has happened so far, seek further guidance, and then, go back to the next round. They don't really have decision-making authority, and that's quite common globally. So now you have a mismatch in the sense that, for the government side, their team has unfettered access, unmonitored access, whereas, for the PTI, that is not true, because their leader is in jail, and he's in jail not because of any conviction, because all of the convictions were either overturned, or at least the sentence was suspended. So right now he is just in jail for questioning under these very dubious, questionable NAB laws, which many people think violate basic fundamental rights, just by locking up people without conviction for months and months and months. So this is the situation right now. I think these are extremely crucial dialogue. It's about the future of the country. It's about political stability, economic stability. Everything is tied to that. So in order to make sure that the talks are meaningful, I don't think there is anything wrong in PTI's demand that they should have unfettered, unmonitored access to their leaders, and anything that the government can do to make sure they should do that in their own interest, in the interest of the country. It's not a very huge demand. It's something that should and can be arranged very easily. So I hope the government will take steps to ensure, because until they can discuss things in with their leader, and as Mr. Faisal was saying, PTI revolves around that one leader. And since that is true, it's even more important to give them access to their leader. It would be unfair for the government to demand that PTI should have certainly a more participatory structure. PTI is what it is, and that's what you have to deal with.
Right. Ms. Usman, I want your take on this, because this, of course, demand has been put forward in terms of what the PTI wants as part of this negotiating process. And as Dr. Niaz Murtaza was talking about how this is essential to the party, and this is what something that they've been demanding for previously as well. Is that something that can actually be given to the PTI in terms of the modalities that they're looking for, in terms of unfettered, unfiltered access, and to not have any monitoring as part of the meetings? Is that something that can be offered to the jailed founder of a political party in the opposition that you're speaking to?
Thank you so much, Sana, for inviting me. Always a pleasure to be on your show. First of all, I'm really surprised and taken aback. One of your guests said that, Imran Khan is now in jail just because of political, victimization, so to say, and there are no charges against him. There are no cases against him. And why is he in jail? It's maybe he's there on a picnic or something. Well, I would like to remind them that he is the mastermind behind the 9th May attacks, and he has to answer for them. Number two, he has this 190 million pound case hovering around him, and the judgment will be coming anytime now. And it's an open and shut case. And then we have the Tosha Khana 2 case. So, I think the courts are there. They're independent. And Mr. Ex-chairman of PTI has to prove himself innocent in the courts. Only then he will be, declared, free to go. So this is not something which is being done by design or by some malicious intent that he is sitting there in jail. It is because of his own doings that he's there. Now, coming back to the negotiations, I think there is no other leader I can think of who has had more than maybe 1,000 meetings, political meetings, sitting in jail. I think most of his leadership, his family, first tier, second tier, third tier, they've been coming, they've been meeting him. He's had access to everybody. He has access to media also. We keep on listening to his statements, normally pretty bizarre ones, but we do keep on listening to them, because media is always there, and they carry his words, in a very open manner. So there is nothing to say that he is in jail. He does not have access to anybody. Right now, during the negotiations, I'm sure maybe after a day or two, he will have access to his second-tier leadership and to his negotiating team. But it's just a matter of time. There is absolutely no reason for him not to engage with them, or not to be allowed to be engaged with them, because like everybody is saying, he is the end all and be all of PTI. He doesn't recognize anybody else. He says that PTI is there because I am there and I am everything. And PTI was nothing without me. So he is, all in all. Fine, okay, then we will wait or till the time the, admission for his communication goes through. It will go through. I'm quite hopeful. You see, the problem is that our party, Muslim League Noon, is a democratic party. We have always, in fact, we have, at a great political cost, we took up, the government in the PDM era. At that time, the country was at the brink of default. Now, nobody's talking about default. Pakistan is back on track. Economically, the indicators are positive. You look at your stock markets, it's going through the roof. Your dollar is stable. Your interest rate from 23 has come down to 12 or 13. Inflation from 38 is now in single digit 4, 5. So remittances are going up 31%, and foreign direct investment, through we had the Shanghai conference, we have SIFC. So everything is now getting back on track. And I think the Bani also somehow accepted the fact, yes, the government is moving ahead in the right direction. So we are sitting on the table. Our negotiating table has always been there. The only reason why we could not engage the opposition was because they outright denied that we had any authority to talk to them. They said that we were absolutely, without any decision-making power. We were crooks, we were thieves, and we had no moral authority, no legal authority, so on and so forth. They refused to accept the mandate of anybody and everybody except themselves. So they think that the whole of Pakistan is, maybe supporting them. Well, that is something they need to really, come to terms with, that there's just a faction of people that are supporting them, not the whole of Pakistan. It's a populist movement which thrives on propaganda. We all know that. Fake news, all kinds of lies, digital terrorism. This is what they thrive on. So I think that it is time that there should be a reality check, that we first are looking for a charter of demands from them, so that we know exactly what they want from us. We are open. We are open to suggestions. We want Pakistan to have political stability because that is essential for economic stability. And we are willing to go the extra mile for that. And that is why our intent is extremely serious. So we are waiting for them to tell us exactly what they want from us. If they want us to give an NRO and release all the prisoners who are in jail, well, that is not in our hands. We have an independent judicial system in Pakistan, and it will go according to the procedures which have been laid down in the constitution. Other than that, we can talk about the Judicial Commission. We can talk about other things that they want. Let's see. First, they have to tell us what they had a press conference, and in that they said, oh, well, this government is on its way out. They're not going to be here for more than 2 or 3 months. So, they're not a legitimate government. Well, what are you doing there on the table with us if you think we are not legitimate, and if you think
absolutely. And this is an important point of the discussion, because I want to focus also on how serious these negotiations are. And Farrukh, I want your opinion on this in terms of what we've seen happen at the negotiating table, and with reference to these demands and these meetings requests with the founder. That's of course one thing. There's also the context in which this entire process is taking place in, for example, the press conference that M.Usman was referring to, or the kind of judicial powers that exist, or the kinds of cases that have been going on in military courts. All of this, of course, that is also present while we have these actions of negotiations taking place, and then, of course, these demands. So is there any real effort actually happening towards providing that enabling environment to even have the opportunity of success with these talks?
Right. Thank you very much for the question, Slara. I think that this is a real life. Yeah. And in real life, many things can happen simultaneously, right? And this is the part of multi-dimensional reality of life. One thing, and your question is beautiful, I'm going to come to that, but before that, I wanted to address a couple of things that were said earlier. Dr. Saab was actually pointing out that, Khan Saab has been detained as per the NAB laws, and perhaps it is not fair. Unfortunately, this is the biggest problem that you have to realize. But these courts can and authorities can actually keep him behind bars because law permits it. Why does law permit it? Because political parties forget when they come in power that someday they are going to be out of power. Let me give you 3 examples. First, People's Party. When People's Party was in government, it had already signed the Charter of Democracy, and one part of that was to actually do away with the NAB law and create a body which is fairer and more transparent. But that did not happen. Later on, when they went out of power, they continuously actually kept on complaining how NAB was targeting them. Similarly, PML-N was also a signatory to a Charter of Democracy, and same thing there. But they did not take any action, and in the end, eventually NAB actually created too much problem for them. Similarly, PTI also, when PTI was asked repeatedly when it was in power to reform the law, at that time, Mr. Khan used to walk out of meetings because he thought that NRO is being demanded of him. Now that we have learned a lesson, I hope in coming days, whenever dialogues actually reach somewhere, we can realize also that NAB law was created by an autocratic government, and at that time there was a political purpose to it, and now it is time to reform it and bring in the Accountability Commission that was once promised by Charter of Democracy. I hope that that happens, through the legal or the dialogue process. But until then, of course, there are laws which can detain people. And secondly, I think that even in terms of realpolitik, it is in favor of Mr. Khan to stay behind bars because of 2 things. One, when he was a free agent, when he was moving around, there was an attack on his life. How many attacks have taken place since he has gone behind bars? None at all. The second thing which is important is that when last time he was incarcerated for 11 days, he wove a beautiful narrative out of that, and that used to be part of his speeches. Now look at how much time he has actually stayed behind bars. So this is going to be even bigger gift to him, right? So these are realities of life, and we have to contend with them. Now let us talk about something that was that you asked. Progress in the talks, how serious those talks are. As I pointed out, that there are multidimensional aspects to it. So usually when talks take place, they are not on a single frequency. There are many frequencies that are involved, and my understanding is that a lot of progress has been made. Now it is the matter of assurances. It is the old binary between deal versus deal. In deal, of course, you ink something, you actually bring your decision to a fine print on a paper, right? In deal, what happens is that you have an agreement, tacit agreement. That deal, by the way, means some kind of relaxation. That you actually, while you haven't inked it, but both sides are going to behave rationally. So my understanding is, at this moment, the actual reason why things seem to be stuck is that PTI government is demanding that PTI gives assurance in writing, and that assurance will be taken as a part of a step of a deal. And that will ensure that in coming days, PTI does not actually try to create some kind of situation where economy seems to be derailed or something of similar kind. And likewise, PTI also demands certain things in writing. So now the expectation is that this dialogue team is going to meet with the incarcerated former chairman, and after that things will improve. Unfortunately, the demand, first demand can be met, and that is unfettered access to the man. But the unmonitored part is not even realistic, because I don't know how many people you have known who went behind bars. It never happens. Every time there are people, because lives are involved, because incarcerated people are involved, there can be some self-harm. So it is very important not to leave anything unmonitored. That is not going to happen. But I'm sure in coming days we are going to see huge progress, and it is essential, Sana, because eventually this country has to come out of this pressure environment, pressure cooker, where everything keeps on decaying and keep on attacking each other.
Right. Dr. Niaz, I want your opinion also on what Mr. Kaisar has referred to in terms of his demands, although not outrightly, but has referred to the stakeholder being involved in the conversations. And while, of course, this is a political dialogue and this is what we hope to look for, both with the opposition and the government, this has been something that, of course, has an angle to this entire context as well. And so I want your take on what you make of this demand and whether or not that can possibly help the situation.
Yeah, I'll do that, but just to, clarify my statements, I did not say that, Imran Khan is being politically victimized. I said that he is not in jail anymore on any conviction, and that's factually true. The second thing is that, another guest said that Imran Khan has to, prove himself innocent. That's a misunderstanding of the law. Accused people don't have to prove themselves innocent. The prosecution has to prove themselves guilty. And then, there was also the issue that, PTI is centered around one person. I don't think any party can be more one person centered than a party which has the name of its founder in its name, the way PML-N Nawaz has it. Now, to address your question about, the involvement of stakeholder, no, I don't think that is appropriate. The dialogue should take place between political parties. If we want to move towards true democracy and civilian supremacy, other stakeholders like the security establishment should not be involved in the dialogues formally or even informally. In fact, one of the purposes of these dialogues should be to make sure that that stakeholder is kept out of politics on a permanent basis. And I think it would be good if PTI makes that as one of the demands, civilian supremacy and the need to ensure that, political parties are truly empowered. Now, of course, it would be a valid demand to make sure that the government is truly empowered and that in the end, it would not have to go to the establishment to get approval for all this. So that kind of, assurance should come from the government that they are truly empowered and they intend to keep the establishment out of it, and in the end, they will take the decisions on their own. So I think it's important that all these things are taken care of at the beginning before you can move on to, more substantive issues like, election issues, 26th Amendment issues. And one other thing that I would like to encourage, Farrukh seemed to be suggesting that being in jail is something good for Imran Khan because that way he will stay safe and secure. I mean, I think that's an odd logic to give because that would mean that, the government should put the whole country behind Mars as a way to keep everybody safe. The job of the government is to keep people. So just one second, let me finish. Let me just finish it.
Sir, with your respect, I said real politics, right? But you said something about presumption of innocence. I'm sure that you are privy to the NAB law. What does Section 14 say about presumption of guilt? This is my humble submission. Unfortunately, because these political parties do not change law, this is what happens. They have to prove their innocence in the case. With your respect, I hope that you can actually check your facts.
And even in NAB law, the prosecution first has to prove that the assets are beyond their means. So it's not entirely one-sided. Presumption of guilt. Even under NAB law, you have the prosecution has to do the basic groundwork. The Supreme Court has circumscribed the law so that it's not entirely about, proving your innocence. But I agree with you. Some blame does go to the political parties for not fixing it. The PML-N has suffered because of it. Now PTI is suffering because of it. But still, at the end of the day, the fact is that the law is unfair, and there is nothing stopping the government from ending that unfairness at this crucial junction, given the fact that so much as it is at stake, the political stability of the country, the political economic stability of the country. So if they give an even playing field to the PTI in terms of participating in the dialogue, I think it's in their own interest and it's in the interest of the country.
Right, I understand, but Dr. Niaz, can you also help me understand how exactly will that level be playing field be given, and by whom?
Well, again, as they are demanding, unfettered, which means, frequent meetings, even daily if needed. And, of course, they should not be monitored. There should not be, any recording by intelligence agencies. They have mentioned, that the condition of the room where the last dialogue took place is not satisfactory. So, some assurance that, the meetings are not being recorded, and that the access is unfettered on a daily basis. I think these are fairly simple demands compared to the real demands that will come later, related to the elections, the 26th Amendment, the release of prisoners, and so on. So compared to that.
You said that assurance should be given that they are not being recorded. How do you think that can be achieved? You know about bugging devices, they can be anywhere. How do you assure that?
I think there are ways of checking whether there is a bugging device around in a room or not. So I think they should come to some sort of an agreement on how they will check it. But in today's world, and with today's technology, those things are pretty simple and they should be sorted out.
Right.
Dr. Niaz, what about the bugging devices that are being carried with the people who are getting in to meet Imran Khan?
Again, that can also be checked, before they are let into the jail. That can also be checked. That's again very simple.
Right, let me bring Ms. Usman in the discussion as well. And Ms. Usman, I want your take on these discussions of what the government can and cannot do. And you mentioned, of course, the kind of restrictions in terms of the judiciary earlier as well. But I want your take in terms of what Dr. Niaz is also pointing towards in terms of the larger interests of the country, larger interests of political dialogue, whether or not that is possible. And then add to that, whether or not the government actually also can proceed forward or can consider the involvement of the establishment in any of these discussions, given, of course, the fact that we have the very important context of General Javaid Faiz, with reference to how those linkages have been drawn with May 9th, as you pointed out in your previous discussion.
I think everybody knows that the 9th May attack, which was masterminded by Bani himself, it comes under the official Army Secret Act. And that is something which will be decided by the institution itself. We cannot really interfere with that. That should have been thought, PTI is packed with lawyers, and, there are dime a dozen now. I don't know why none of them bothered to explain to the Bani that if by design you attack military installations, you do come under the purview of that act. You will be put to trial under that Army Secret Act. Now, they did not touch a single civilian building, not a single thing. What they did was, it was all military: GHQ, Miawali A Base, ISI offices, Cardiology Institute, Jinnah House, our Shohada Ziyad, you name it. So now they should not this hue and cry about why the military courts. Now the government cannot do anything about that. Period. So there is no further discussion. Now, talking about the other court cases, I'm an MPA, right? I've been given a form. Every year I have to submit my assets and liabilities with the Election Commission. I have to tell them, okay, start of the year, these were my assets, and at the end of the year, this is where I, made profit, or this is where I went into loss. Now, Mr. Imran Khan, in his 3.5 years, you know how his assets multiplied by, I think, more than 300%. They multiplied, and the point is that he never declared it. He never declared, like even an MPA like me. I have to declare. He did not declare anything in his assets and liabilities form to Election Commission. That is in itself is a great violation. That means that you have amassed a lot of wealth and you're not even telling anybody about it. From where did it come? You have to declare it. So all there is incriminating evidence against him. And I'm sure the prosecution has everything in order. So it is not going to be easy for Mr. Khan to get out of this one, because he knew exactly from where that money, Tosha Khana, whatever it was, and all the billions that were flying around here, left, right, and center. Now, this has to be accounted for. Other than that, I think we have to now decide, do we want Pakistan to follow the same fate as some other Muslim countries? Now, we are a nuclear state, and that is something which is very hard, especially for the West, to digest. Right now, Israel is the main beneficiary of the US, and the second most beneficent beneficiary of US aid is Afghanistan. Where are all those dollars coming from? They're pouring down in Afghanistan. They're coming you must have read that tweet of Elon Musk, that they are getting billions every month, and that is why dollar is cheap, and dollar is being smuggled from Pakistan to Afghanistan too. There is this nexus, and who is supporting?
Thank you very much, Ms. Usman, for joining us. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you very much, Dr. Niaz Murtaza, for being part of the discussion as well. We're going to quickly take a look at what is happening in the Kurram district as well, with, of course, violence between the warring tribes being something that unfortunately led to the loss of huge lives and, of course, disruption in the area. But with regards to where we stand today, post-New Year's, post the ceasefire, and post an attack on security personnel as well, Faisal, I want your take on whether or not the government has a grip on the situation.
Well, this is what, of course, was declared at that time, that government has the rate out there, and that's what was decided by the government itself, that they want to go along with their plan, and their plan was that they want to talk with the elders from the both sides, and them elders would ensure that the both sides, people from the both sides, they are disarmed, and the arms they were having out there, they were supposed to be, of course, removed from there, so that the further carnage can be stopped. And but at the same time, when DC of the area, when he is traveling and he gets attacked in there, along with his people, his staff, they get attacked, and this happens right after, the truce which was carried out from both sides. This is alarming. I believe there is another third part that is not wanting both of the sides to be, sitting together and the elders sorting it out. They want the carnage to keep on going, because it is a bordering area, and of course it can easily be suggested that there is a third sort of faction that does not want the peace to be restored in Kurram. And to me, I think here, even from the government side, the KPK government, it needs to be, it needs to apply the right wisdom to carry out things, and the right number of security forces as well. They need to be employed in there, so that they can figure out that where this third party is actually penetrating through. And if there is a further carnage in Kurram agency, of course, that would be a disaster for the whole area. And to me, I think so far, the government needs to apply more wisdom, and its its mechanism through which they were wanting the peace to be restored in the area through disarming both of the sides. I think that needs to be done, but the right number of people are required for that as well, and along with the elders of the area.
Right, absolutely. And Farrukh, I want your take on this as well, but add to that the process forward in terms of steps taken, such as that anybody carrying a weapon is a militant. Do these steps actually help the situation?
Right, Sana, I think that it will be, one has to actually wait and see how it is executed. Because FATA, ex-FATA, when it was FATA, at that time everybody was allowed to carry guns, right? And these are people who have actually lived, grown up with weapons, so it will be very difficult. Public display perhaps is something that can be taken care of. So I hope that it takes place. There's one complaint, and that is that it took us so many days to actually discuss this topic. And then, of course, I got only 2 minutes because I've actually extensively traveled back in 2011 when for the first time Talpada Chanar Road actually opened. I was one of the fortunate journalists who extensively traveled on it. So I know the topography and I understand the kind of fault lines that are there. Of course, there is one aspect is that it is essentially land dispute, which has actually morphed into a sectarian nature. And then because there was a lot going on in Iraq and elsewhere, right? Because of that, there were people who went both sides. Shias also went, Al-Zanabiyun, it is called, and they fought elsewhere. And a lot of Sunnis also went. And they are back, so they are bound to be fighting as well. And by the way, just to remind everybody, this is an area which is surrounded on 3 sides by Afghanistan. Only on one side it connects with Pakistan, which are huge landmass, but still it is exposed to Afghanistan, so to speak, which makes incursions possible. And Faisal is right, a third party can actually theoretically actually benefit. In fact, when Hakimullah Masood was alive and his power was unprecedented at that time, he was based at Sadda, which is at the center of former Kurram agency, and I have literally gone to those caves which actually had transformers attached to them, and they had also landmines on top of them, and because that was where Hakimullah Masood used to keep his captives. So the fact that it is a tinderbox, and by the way, you keep on talking about government, so there are 3 dimensions: provincial government, federal government, and then there's armed forces.
Right.
The fact is that it is the provincial government which has to take stock and which has to own the whole thing, because unfortunately it seems to have other priorities, and it should take care of these things.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate. As always, that's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.